Now, Ian, you remember I was saying to you that there are some times when you try on behaviours that you do feel a bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
And there's one that I still feel an idiot, and I think it was 1972, when I suddenly realised for a group of young delinquent men that they needed a very powerfully expressed role of authority that could look powerful but was in fact weak. And I turned on, I mean, look at this. There's a German officer. Now I feel an idiot doing that. I'm changing my demeanour, look. I'm shouting, "Rouse, rouse." I mean, it's not my way of talking at all. And I still feel a bit daft. But when I look at their responses, I know that it was right. It had just the amount of bluster that allowed those kids to pull me down to size, and that committed them. They were going to survive a prison camp. And people like me were going to lose the war.
Yes.
So it's that sort of thing
Yes.
I'd like us to try now. Now then, the German officer is a deliberately obstructive, power-giving role. So I'm going to ask you to test yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Ian, who is the mildest of men, to be deliberately obstructive and yet reasonable. You remember I said earlier on in an earlier tutorial, sometimes you decide those children need a bit of a thrill. People think this is dreary teach them all to be little workers teaching. It isn't. It allows you to introduce the most bizarre sorts of situations, because that's what it's like being human, you know. So you see, one of the things you might like to just try out is, if we want it to come and measure the sight, because we are dealing with the accuracy of measuring. So we've got to bring real sight measuring tools. We may even reach a stage where we could use a theodolite, I don't know. But we certainly would have long measures and big metre rules, not just centimetre stuff. And we would come armed and find when we got to the gate, and you can make a contract with them. You can say, how difficult would you like me to make it to let you in, you know? Do you want a real big battle about trying to get in? Okay, I'll be as tough as you think you want me to be, and I'll keep checking. An obstructive guard who doesn't know they're coming, now you'll hear your own voice, and never break, it goes by the book. And the book says this, this and this, you see. So what I'm going to do is Derek will be a very reasonable member of the class for you. It's only his voice we need. And I'm going to say, okay, you're going to move more into the expressive zone. Now, a guard can start sitting down. You can just marshal how many ways are there of being obstructive. One is you don't notice when anybody's waiting. Now, in the real world, you don't care how long you make them wait, perhaps. But in this teaching, you wait long enough so that they get the power to start breaking the mould and moving forward and trying to get your attention. And you never give in easy, but you never make them wait so long they despair, because that way you keep the letter again, you see. Now, do you fancy starting sitting down? You conjure the world of the guard. You may not have had a job for a year. You're taking this one serious. And it's going to be a 2-year, 4-year job, this. And it's the sort of job that, you know, you lack a bit of authority. Now, when you feel you can see and hear, the class will come over. And Derek will explain what we want to do. We want to try and measure the sight. You can take a newspaper, you can have your specs, you can have anything you want, but it must be signed that you're there waiting.
I have my list.
You've got your list of visitors that are due to come today. That's nice, because they're not going to be on the list. Now, this is where, out of all, you can say, you do realise you're not on my list, and I go by lists, which allows you, you see, to just feed a bit of attitude out to
Yeah, so we're experimenting with this situation for them. Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
You've all built it together.
Mm.
Now I'll sit back and I'll give you some feedback on it. This is really hard, you know, but this is how you can learn. You don't have to learn on the real kids and get in despair because you don't handle it.
Good morning. Air Sol consultants, we are expected. The rest of my party are just unloading all their equipment.
Airsole Consultants, you say?
Yes, perhaps it's under my name, Michael Sharrock.
No, Sharrock. No Airsole Consultants. No. Not
But it was all arranged for the office. I mean, we've come a long way with all this specialist equipment.
I get a list every morning that tells me who's coming. You're not on it.
But we need to measure the site for the garden festival. Well, have you got it under perhaps the air pavilion? Perhaps it's listed under sites.
No, there are only 3 visitors today, and it doesn't say that.
Now let's stop it there. I felt here there was that capacity to remain silent, which is very powerful. It's a tremendous ploy. The list is marvellous. I think it's ever so useful. You may not have a verbal class. You got there a very verbal person who could negotiate. This class may not be able to negotiate. Now, I'm going to take the class this time, and you're going to have to help me negotiate, right? Thank you,
Okay.
Dave. So you can test your demeanour again. It was perfectly fine. That truculent look. You see, it's projection. It's a matter of projection. And your ear is out listening to the class. What does the class need?
You're not on the list.
No, start at the very, very beginning. He's going to shake you, this one. He's going to really shake you.
Do you want something?
We've come to see the site.
Who are you? I have a list.
Airsole Consultants, we
Oh.
are.
Let me just check.
We're doing the pavilion.
I haven't heard of any pavilion. You're not on the list.
Is this the garden centre site?
Yeah.
The garden,
Yes, it's going to be the garden festival here.
and we're doing a pavilion, aren't we? We're doing a pavilion.
Are you? Well, that's great. But security is a great concern around here at the moment, and I have my orders not to let anyone on the site.
All we want to do is measure it. We just want to come in and measure it. We've got our measuring things.
Well, I'm not allowed
We've
to let
got a
anyone that's not on the
theodolite.
list.
But we've come from Nottingham.
Have you? It's a long way to come.
Now you see, you can hear the upgrading you're doing. You're supporting me through. That's right, but don't give in easy. What you may have to do is stop using the list now, because you'll make us repeat and repeat, and then we'll lose heart. But you might have, what else might you have to help us forward and give us a bit hope?
Well, I've got a telephone here.
That's right, the telephone's the next one. And they will have heard of something, but it might be, we may have to check the date.
You had a letter, did you? You've got a
Yes.
letter there. Would you like me to phone the person who wrote the letter to you? Perhaps.
Don't ask us too much, don't kowtow too much. Well, I can always use the phone, I suppose.
Not supposed to make calls in at this.
That's right, yes, we shouldn't be needing to do this, that's right. But certainly, I mean, the responses there were very supportive. I deliberately used very simple terminology. We brought our measuring things because I would assume you'd give them this bit of excitement fairly early on.
Mm.
You see, people need consolidation and belief making and rescuing. And in the end, if teachers will work at it, the children are so powerful in terms of responsibility and in terms of self-critical awareness of the quality of their work. So that you see, later I might turn into their consultant again and say, you know, I realise we should have had that letter. It was silly of me not to think about it. We'll know next time, we'll make sure we've got all the credentials we need, because you can come and be many people
Yes.
for them, you see. Now, there is a powerful blocking person. Now let's try and see whether you can hear in your head a blocking person who's blocking because they're just plain inefficient, which helps us realise how efficient we are. See if you can hear. You know, somewhere, it's like being a writer. Somewhere in the world you'll have met one and you didn't know you'd registered them. Sometimes you do know you've registered them. They're graven on your soul. So we'll have another kind of power. You're giving away power through being powerfully ineffective. And again, if we may just use Derek as the class. And again, not too sure of itself.
No.
Right. They're still coming to measure.
Excuse me, is it okay if we bring our stuff in?
Who are you?
Air Salt Consultants. We are expected.
Who are you? I've got lots of lists here that they send down. Send a list down every day, you know, and
Yes.
somewhere along the line I've got a list of people coming today. I mean, you must be somewhere here, I think.
Perhaps it's under Sharrock.
Sharrock.
Maybe, yes.
Well, could be. You know, the trouble is they send so many lists in here, I just don't know what's happening.
So lovely. You are beguiling me. Beguiling. Oh, I have hopes for you.
Perhaps I'm naturally inefficient.
No. However, this is the bit, you know. In all this beguiling, that is a wonderful moment to come out of role and say, do you think they'd ever keep anybody as inefficient as me? Do you think I'm sufficiently inefficient, you know, for what we need? Do you think I should sharpen my efficiency a bit? So the self-spectator bit is awakening. What do you think about how it was when we were, you see? Otherwise you beguile. That's when teachers rightly say he's enjoying the performance. In fact, I don't believe you were. What you were doing was demonstrating what you were trying to do. But that's when they quickly think, look, he's acting his socks off again. And I think we must constantly demonstrate that this is a learning, working situation, you see. And there again, you see, you go on with that just enough.
You've got to be switching into it and
Switching,
saying...
that's right, the whole time. And of course you're checking on, if they are beguiled, you're doing it badly. If they're lost in the performance, you have muffed it completely and you hope the bell will ring, because you'll not be able to recover it except by coming out of role. I think I was too inefficient there, don't you? I don't think he'd have lost, well, he'd have lost his job, wouldn't he? Okay, do you mind if we have a rerun? And I'll be a bit more efficient. The contract, the whole time. But I felt that the two, you discovered them so quickly that I really do genuinely believe that you will remain reasonably comfortable. There are always roles we can't do. I would find it very difficult to be Juliet if I had to move. I could be Juliet's voice and her attitude, but if I had to move or they had to look at me too long, I would feel now I'm a bit past it. I'm less past it now, though, than when I was 25. Because I'm cleverer now, I think, than when I was 25. Now I'm going to give you some very fast and see if you can respond. Because this is the way we can teach so many skills to ourselves. We don't have to learn them all on the kids, you see. So now, I'm going to suggest to you, you take a role that will look domineering, that is a police constable, for example. So it's quite difficult. And this I'm going to say, try standing up. You are approaching a house. We are inside the house. We'll say we're inside our ASL offices, if you like. And your job is to get us to open the door. You're trying to get access. And we'll say it's night. But you know somewhere there's a caretaker. You will have to have in your mind why you want to get access, because the kids and you would know. Let's say you suspect an intruder. So you're trying to get access. I can give you a little bit of space. Obviously, you take the space you need in the classroom. We are watching you, and we are not going to easily give you access. And what we'll do is we'll give you a feedback on, you know, Derek, I would have opened the door to him when he said that. It would have made me get out of bed and come down. You see? Right.
Is there anyone there? Could you open up, please? Please.
Oh.
That was very useful. I don't know I believe it, though.
We need you to open up. We've heard about intruders in the area. Think there might be someone in your property.
Nobody here.
Could be a hoax.
Yes.
I've been sent down by the police station to sort it out. Need to find out whether there's anyone broken in.
Now, I feel what you're doing is getting very reasonable, and you're losing the law business. One of the things you can get away with here, because you're in role, you could never do it as a teacher. Well, I'd be ashamed if I did it as a teacher. You open it for me! Open up! It's the police! You might need something as strong as that for the children, because it's a cliche. You can afford the cliche power, the German officer again.
Yes.
The cliche power, not too reasonable. Try the next one. Same trying to get access, but it's a very delicate situation. You want to try, if you can, to get somebody to come down without necessarily alerting the whole neighbourhood. Now, you see, this is where you may elaborate it a bit. You might ask the children, will you make the sound of my car? Let's get the sound of my car. I'm pulling up. I think I've seen something. So I'm going to come out, and you're demonstrating. I'm coming out, I've got my torch, I'm looking, and I'm trying to get access, because I think I've seen somebody. And just see what happens. Okay. You can involve the class as much as you like. They can howl like cats. They can create the atmosphere they would like, you see.
Right, I've just driven up to this building. I'm about to get out. It's very dark here. There's not a sound. What I'd like you to do is just help me see what's there. And as I look around me, this building looks very deserted, and I can see just at the top corner there's a light on, and I'm going to try to get in touch with that person. I'm going to walk to the door and see what I can find.
Now, what he's doing here is beguiling us in his story, isn't he? Did you feel the same? You're beguiling us, and you've got the story, and we're waiting to see whether you let us do anything. You see?
Yeah.
What I'd like you to do is a statement that is always tricky, because it's a power statement.
Yes.
See if you can... I mean, I'm asking the impossible of Ian. I'm asking him to do it instant. You know, which, of course, often you have to do in a class. But you get in the habit of it happening easier and easier. You never do it perfectly, but you learn to recover. You say, I'm beguiling them. I can see I'm beguiling them.
Yes.
Or I said what I want you to do.
Yes.
I'll have to recover from that, you see. So don't think, I know the answer. I know the recovery bits. Because it's just practice. Try just ways of, can you give us a cat noise? Give us a cat noise, you know. Try a couple of footsteps round the back. You're still giving a dictation, but you're leaving them, you're trusting them to fill the pause, you see. Now this is a much more difficult one than the first one, because the open up police is probably the one they need first. The more subtle one invites much more responsibility and the atmospheric build-up. Now let's try a third one. Don't give up on it, you know. This time, see whether you can get me to come to the door quick to open it. You can be as powerful as you wish, but when I come to the door, you've got to work with finesse to keep the power in my hands. Try it. You can get me to come to the door, I promise you I'll come to the door. I won't wait, we'll come to the door. It'll be as powerful as you like, but it's when I come to the door. Because kids sometimes surprise you.
Quick, open up, knock.
Yeah, you just knock, you know. You don't
I was looking
say
for a
knock.
door. Could you come urgently, please?
Careful.
I'll keep the chain on.
Yes, take care.
Hello, Mrs. Jones. You are Mrs. Jones, aren't you? I've got an urgent message I've got to give you. We've heard that there are people in the street breaking into houses, and I'm from the police, and I need to speak to you urgently. Is your husband in?
Yes.
Do you think I could come in and speak to you about it?
Yes.
Because we
Now,
need to sort...
I would ask you there, why do you need to come in? You give me the power. You're giving me the power to keep you out, and I'm going to keep you out. That's the only power I've got at the minute. See whether it matters to come in. And remember, you can come out of role. Do you think I would have frightened you too much? You see, might
Yes,
be
'cause
a
you're...
thing. You can come out of role. Remember, as much as you wish, it is not a weakness. People think the longer you stay in role, the cleverer you are. You are cleverer the more you come out. You see, because you're awakening the self-spectator and the quality in it.
Yes.
Right? Just have one more go at that one. You're beginning to see it is more difficult, obviously, than it looks. And you don't have to do these. I wished it on you because I showed you how foolish you can feel sometimes.
Yes.
But you don't have to take on any role that you don't feel you can handle. It's
No,
your
and
choice.
you've got to practice, haven't you? You've got to.
Exactly. So just open up, Mrs. Jones, whatever.
OK. Open up, Mrs. Jones. Could you come to the door quickly, please? It's police. Yes, I'm come down from the police station. We've heard there are a lot of burglaries going on in the area and people are in the street at the moment.
Now, this is one way you can give me power straight away. You'll want to see my identification. Now, that would give me power straight away. Not, here's my identification, which takes power, but you'll want to see it. It's there. Can you see it all right, Mrs. Jones? I'll shine my torch. Yeah. And I've got the power to see it or not see it. Do you see?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you need? You do, Billy? Right.
Yeah.
You see? See if you can get an answer from me. If you can get me to answer, you're winning on giving the power away. Now, we can't repeat it because you never can at that point. But it's these ways that you'll fall into it because it matters. It sounds as if I'm magicking something, you know, that, OK, Ian, you'll be all right. I'm not saying that to Ian. I'm saying if he thinks this way of teaching is something that will serve his purposes, then it's worth him trying to do it well and not sloppily. And he can learn. The children can forgive. They're marvellous at forgiving. As long as he comes out of role and says, don't think I managed that too well. I think I just made a good story up for myself. Of course you can do that. In this sort of work, you can say you're wrong. Actually, you're never wrong or right. What you are is, there's a certain accuracy about it, a certain usefulness about it, and a certain productivity about it.
Yes.
And you might find yourself saying, well, you try it and I'll come in the house. You see, or we'll come in the house. Right, here we go then. Let's take the next stage of role. You see, you realise I'm leading you all the time to be just a little bit more venturesome in... You see, you've already realised that one of the important aspects of teaching through role is the precision of your intention. My intention in this is to make them win this. My intention is this, is to get them to demonstrate to me how you measure. Because that ineffective guard, they could make him hold things, and you could actually be in a position through that role of recognising how they're going about this. What measuring skills have they got? Are they vague? Are they accurate? Will anything do? The ineffective guard can often be the person, the teacher is able to see more. Because he's not busy being effective and bossy and so on. I don't mind staying while I am supposed to. I can hold, fetch, carry. Do you want me to write that down? Did you say it was really 2.5 metres? And
Yes.
you're actually teaching, you see, the curriculum. Now, are you still happy, is the important question. Are you still happy? And have you any worries?
I'm aware of how much more difficult it is than it seems, and
Yes.
I found in those examples how difficult it was to get the voice and the language. Sort of, it's a package, isn't it? You've got to have it all together, and if one bit's wrong, then the rest of it's wrong.
But you can stop in 5 seconds.
Mm.
Because you recognise it. The important thing in teaching frequently is to recognise what's not happening that you intended to occur, and never to kid yourself.
Mm.
You don't kid yourself at all. I think I made a mess of that, don't you?
Mm.
Never mind, we'll try it another time.
Mm.
You
That's
see.
very reassuring,
Yes,
isn't it?
Yes. Now, another area that may worry you is, will you have enough knowledge? You see, it's fairly easy to be a policeman asking people to open up. There's plenty of movies, even if you don't go to them. You hear it on the news. It's fairly easy to be a guard because you're drawing on human experience. But there'll be times when you take on a role where you're deliberately doing it to feed information and to feed vocabulary and to feed a demeanour and an attitude to work that you may feel you need actual knowledge about. Now, in this one, you see, one of the things that daunts teachers is I couldn't take on the role of an architect because I'm not an architect. I don't know anything about being an architect. None of us ever know enough. You can't ever know enough. So let's take this architect one. Supposing the class now have provided some designs. You now want them to scrutinise them in much more detail. You might want to introduce concepts about strengths of materials. You might want to introduce notions of a wider view. They love their pavilions. And every one of them wants this one, you know, rather than that one and so on. What you want them to do is develop the critical quality now of seeing when the public come here. Or will it stand up? Will it stand up to weather? Will it stand up in a high wind? It can't be all of these. You'll only learn why you need the architect when you see what they're doing. Their language is sloppy. Okay, we'll do something about it. Their drawing is inaccurate. Okay, we'll do something about it. They're ready now, not just to do a plan, they could tackle an elevation. Okay, they need an architect, so I'll be an architect. Now, I don't know what you do when you're an architect. I couldn't draw an elevation. Mind you, I would find something out and I would have a good example of an elevation. That I would have to get ready. And that example would have to have some element of a temporary building about it. You know, it's not the Taj Mahal elevation and so on. So now, let's suggest this, and you try an architect. First of all, you're signing. We're coming to you So you might need architect's office, somehow architect written on the blackboard. That sets up part of the sign, the attention to detail. Now, summon your knowledge about what you think you know about architecture, and you'll always know more than you realise, of course, because you've been living in a house for years, I assume, and you've lived in tents and you've lived in caravans. You know, there's all sorts of, you've been in churches and studios and art galleries. You know a lot about it. Now let's suppose that the children have come and you really want them to be able to criticise and have another look at the quality of their work. It needs to be more precise, but it's to be done so that the power stays with us. So here is this class coming in, and we'll ask Derek's voice again. They brought their plans. Now they're a bit wiser now. They can introduce themselves because they've been through a fair number of experiences with you. And what you are doing is trying to help them see that their plans are so promising that they're now ready to be drawn in detail to be submitted to a committee. In other words, it's like, instead of saying, well, I'm afraid you're just not doing these drawings well enough. This is no good for what we need. But by using the architect, it can dawn on them that they need to do it. You see, don't be afraid to tell them, of course. Right then. So the architect is waiting. Sign it. Your secretary will bring in the class, and you are waiting. And we've sent you some advance notice that we're coming. What would you put on your desk?
I'd probably, well, I'd have, if I had some of these drawings, I'd probably choose a couple of drawings that were in progress, if I
And
could
you've
get
been in a
copies of them.
position to do that because the children and you have done them, you know. So you would be in a position to have some, as if they've sent them in advance.
Sent them in advance.
If you're going to do that, negotiate it with them. Would you agree to have sent me some in advance? Do you think it would be a good idea if I've had my eye over a couple? All right, will you choose some for me to have on the desk? That's a contract, okay? Now what that signs is, I'm ready for the particular meeting that's going to take place now. Now, when I was thinking, well, I'm asking Ian this, what would I do? I thought I would have Airsol Consultants' file right in the middle of the desk and everything else moved to one side, and I would be looking at it, and I probably would pick up the phone to say something supportive of them. I understand they've already arrived. Would you show them in, Miss Jones? And so on. Could you get yourself in as if Miss Jones has shown you in? Allows you to do that, you see. But now you would like plans, that's fine. Use them. Take your idea. Okay then. So there you are.
Right.
I'll do the walking and Derek will do the talking. Right?
Could you show the Airsol Consultants in, Miss Jones, please? Would you like to come in and have a seat?
We've brought the plans.
Yes, I've got some of the ones that you sent me here, and I'm very interested in what you've done. Could you explain what you're trying to achieve? Because one of the things I'm interested in is whether what the purpose of the drawing is going to be. So perhaps I could hear from you about what you're trying to do with the drawings.
Now, I know Derek's not had a chance to come in as class. You over-talk. This is one of the things that you probably need to watch, because they are children, and the longer you talk, the more they'll listen, or drift. I think that's true. Would you say?
Yes, very much, yes.
I've got some of your plans here. Could we see the others? Oh, yes. I'm very glad you've got the north, south, east and west in. It's very helpful there. Have you seen the site? Say shorter things. It helps you not to take. Just touching things on us. Yes, I think I can understand from this plan what you're after. Is there anybody could just... that's an interesting angle. So that you invite the business. So you see, Ian, it's been a valuable exercise, even in this short time. Because you are a talking person, you make your negotiations through a certain delicacy of demeanour and so on. In a way, what I'm saying, cut into the wood, carve it more firmly.
Yes.
In the doing aspect of it. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So you can point up all the good things with as few words as possible. See, sometimes if you mention the orientation, but you can actually touch something here,
yes.
a beautiful angle there. You've obviously got some technical drawing skills in your office. The trouble with the committee is they need labels. You see, I think I know what that is. Could you just pop a word or two on there then? You see, it's that kind of thing. But you didn't feel you didn't know enough, did you?
No, I didn't feel that.
No, right. So what you'd be doing actually is you'd be working as an inspecting teacher, really. I mean, that's what Ian's doing here. But he's hiding behind the role so that his power to judge is subdued. His power to negotiate is awakened. And their power to negotiate, they should be explaining more than you as time goes on. And it's so wonderful when they start to take it. No, you've got it wrong. This is the one that's that. Yes, I see. Oh, I see that. And then when it comes to, right, mate, you're going to have to do this better, then you can negotiate it through the committee. The committee is as thick-headed as you can make them, you see, in this sense. So there's going to be more architect's vocabulary, and the standard is raised. So that's the business of, do I know enough? Are you comfortable that if I said, okay, a sea captain, you know, what can you marshal suddenly on the business of navigation? What can you marshal suddenly on embroidery? You will know a lot. It's this business of quick summoning. And of course you summon the real world. You don't summon children's books that's been filtered like herrings, you know, and all the bones taken out. And I'm not suggesting that children's books aren't valuable, incidentally. Now let's try another one. Sometimes a role will help you create tension. Now tension is terribly important. Again, you do it when they need a thrill. You do it when they need commitment. They need a bit of a break, even. So I've invented one for you. You remember your two guards?
Yep.
This time, we are all going to be guards. And we're going to guard the festival site. Because the festival site now is covered in valuable equipment. There's drilling machines, there's all the builders' tools, there's all the brickwork, there's glass, there's all this stuff on site. And there's a fence up, and there are no dogs at the moment, there are people. Now, how do we make a night building site? You see? Now, just have a go at it. Can you hear it? And just describe what you think you might do. And you think of it while you're watching him. Night. All this stuff.
Odd sounds. Wind, perhaps.
So you'll have to negotiate the sounds.
Yes.
Right.
Maybe something blowing in the wind, a bit of corrugated iron or
Yes,
something
yes.
rattling.
Now, if you start with sounds, you're going to have a long lesson. Perfectly all right. They need time. It's awakening the self-spectator enormously well. What happens if somebody drops a pen?
Mm.
You know, what happens if somebody scrapes a door? That is one way to do it. Now we're coming on to a very important aspect, so I'm going to try and demonstrate something to you. The whole of role work works on what mood, what attitude does the class have. Now, I've dealt with framing in an earlier tutorial, but this is another aspect of framing, and I'm using here Irving Goffman's notion of purity of sign. Irving Goffman, purity of sign. And it's the way you set up a situation that helps the children handle it without having to be an actor. What they are is behaviours who care about their work. You see. Now, the area of life where all the signing is artificially designed is that of the theatre. So the theatre is quite separate. The audience's attitude then is, we've come to see. We've come to be made, to be beguiled. Now, all the rest happen in the real world, but there's a certain degree of signing in all of them. In this one, it's times of high ritual, when a circumstance, a social encounter, has a certain artificiality about it. It's set aside from just the ordinary everyday as a baptism. Certain behaviours become dictated by the event. So people have a certain leeway, but they also submit a bit to the event. Now you see, there's a penalty zone in this. There's a no penalty zone here. Actors are not hung if they commit a murder in a play. But here, if the priest doesn't know how to do a baptism, there is a penalty zone. I use baptism because I already said it. So we submit to the ritualisation. Now, you say to yourself, if we framed this as a ritual, would it help the children get more deeply involved in the terror of this night? Now, what are the rituals of guarding? Walking quietly, watching, never going to sleep, having keys, unlocking, reporting in. These are all things that will create the atmosphere easily. Right. I've got the keys. You'll be 20 yards apart. It allows you to dictate, but it's because you're setting up the ritual that allows it. Once the ritual's in place, anything can go wrong. Right. The second one, if you frame it as a demonstration, it's totally different. The demonstration says, right, here's the site. Which area are you guarding? Who's dealing with the bricks? Who's watching the glass? Right, you're demonstrating in advance what you're prepared to do. A demonstration demands less active behaviour at the beginning, right? Tonight, coffee breaks will be after midnight. And you actually foreshadow, you see, what will happen. This is how it'll be. You'll be at number 7, he'll be at number 8. Right, I'll just stand back and let you all get into position, and will you phone in? They are demonstrating, they're ready. Does that make sense? The magic of terror will come after. They've got the power to choose where they'll be. I didn't say you'll be on bricks, who'll be on bricks, and so on. The next one is a briefing. Now, in a briefing, you foreshadow the event, and they don't move out yet. You think of all the briefings of all the pilots, in whether it was the Gulf War or whatever it is. We believe the enemy are here and here, here. Now then, there's been 4 reported break-ins last night. I've marked them. There's the briefing element, you see. Now, whoever's on those areas, you'll have to be particularly alert tonight. You foreshadow the terror. Are there any questions? How were you fixed for your coffee and such last night? Because it was cold. Right. Did you notice anything last night? Well, now listen. There's a report coming that. And you make them brief you, as well as you brief them. Am I making a bit of sense to you? I hope I'm making a bit of sense to you as well. Now, the next one, you see, is games, where the situation is highly ritualised. OK, lads. Or lads and lassies, of course. On your mark. The boss is coming round tonight, so watch it. Right, what's rule number 1 when he comes round? You know what he's like. And you turn it into a game.
Yeah.
Yes, OK, quick off your marks, get yourselves in position, ring in and I'll check you're all there and I'll make sure he knows, you know. He doesn't come in, I'll see he doesn't come in till midnight. And the point at which it ceases to be a game is when it becomes terrible. But you can't plan the future of that. Don't think you've got a lovely little story in your mind of what you're going to do. You're not ever going to have cards up your sleeve. When everybody's in there, we can build a picture of what this boss is like when he comes on at night. We can build the boss we're prepared to take on. And then you be the boss that they've created. Does that make some sense? Never are you there saying, I've got to find some horrible thing to happen to them. You don't. The most important thing is, we can stop and we can say, now then, what's the most scary thing we are prepared to deal with? And for some it might be ghoulies and ghosties, and others it might be being held up at gunpoint, or it might be watching a truck come round and they're loading glass up there and they've knocked Jim out. But they will invent the plot. You don't have to love your play. They and you together. And it gets much more powerful, you see. And the final one is, you don't go on guard at all, you hear about it. It's an optional beguilement. Hey, I heard there was trouble last night. What happened? Oh, I wish I'd been on nights. What did you do? And they are an optional beguilement. You can let them get into coots and say, we'll invent the most outrageous thing that happened. And we'll make him believe it. So it can be partly a game, or it can be, that must have been awful. Now, you see, certain areas of life you cannot reenact. It is a dangerous thing to do. I would not visit upon children somebody coming along and propositioning them. If they invent it for me, I'll accept it. And I'll probably challenge it a bit, but not in any way to pull it down. OK, you were responsible for what you've invented, so I'll go along with it. I wonder, you know, why we thought that was the most interesting. There's no note of censure in it. So if it's an optional beguilement, you can handle much more dangerous material afterwards. And you then are the one who didn't know what went on. I was busy at the front when somebody shot, you say. You didn't see what happened. And of course, you can make it as deep as they can take on this. So if we've lost 10,000 bricks, and they are reporting it back, and they care, then they're going to have to face up to the issue. And you know the next stage of the work is something to do with calculation of costs, how you'll publish it in the local papers, will you admit that there's been any loss, what are we going to do? It is always curriculum. It is not making exciting plays about losing bricks. Losing bricks, what curriculum travel can I get out of it? How do I carefully create language so that the whole of Cardiff doesn't start wanting to shut the festival down? How can they interview people? Would you interview them so they learn how to tell the truth but not make people panic? Can they tell the truth without blaming? Do they have to have a scapegoat? Can they transfer a written thing into a spoken thing in an interview into a written account? This is what this work is about. You are seeking all the time those opportunities. Now we come to the next stage. I've asked Derek to make us a class, and we're going to test ourselves in role. Would you like to lay out your class,
surely.
Derek, so that we can, if I put the cloth over these, so that we don't muddle up our framing. Are you getting weary of all this battery? You can take it easy, but Ian can. There we are. Now you can give us a classroom, Derek. Just whatever you've had time to do. Now, in a way, this looks like we're going back to the beginning, where you are going to be fairly underplaying it, but the actual growth point in this exercise is that Ian has to be able to find many voices quite quickly. His classroom is now working on a task in groups. We don't know the tasks that they've chosen because Derek has chosen them for us. And the tasks at the moment are written on pieces of paper. So here's your classroom, and these people are working in groups. Thank you very much. Now then, Derek is now going to put on the areas of concern they're working on at the moment. Right?
Okay.
Make sure we can't read them. Just put them face downwards.
Remembering which is which.
Yes, yes. I'll give you your teacher position, and I've got mine.
That should mean.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
It's quite a difficult
Yeah.
exercise for you. I appreciate you doing this. So we've
That's
got
it,
a class
yeah.
of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. You're a class of 34. It's quite a big class, but that's fine. Now, let me just show you something. In what we've been dealing with, if this is the role I would be taking, I'm a woman, and I want to take a masculine role, I am not becoming a man. What I'm doing is I'm going just far enough so that they can see it's Mrs. Heathcote trying this. And that's the bit that becomes fused. I don't have to turn into a full character. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to approach a group in my role as a person who runs this air sol consultancy.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter because I don't know what they're on about. They've gone away after that letter that Mr. Evans originally wrote to them, remember? And they've gone away to discuss the ideas that interest them. So I'll just open this one up. Now, as I approach this one, I am reading the sign. And all teachers are doing this, but doing it consciously keeps you on the ball. So I'm walking over and I'm seeing there's a girl there, and of course I would know her name, but in this case I don't. She seems not to be very interested in what she's doing, and in fact this seems a very split group. I now need evidence to see whether they're split as I think they are. I must not make assumptions that I know. Now I'm going to turn over what Derek's written, and this is when I'll find out what they're discussing. Oh dear. This group is interested in all the different words to do with air and wind, and where do these words come from? Right, so I've listened and I can hear this is what they're talking about. Yes, I think that's very useful. And I see you've got somebody doing a list there. It's very handy. What have you got down? Oh, I see, yes. Yes, I'm wondering about that girl over there. I won't do anything about it yet. Have you all been making this list? And I'm listening to the girl there. I'm learning more about it. I don't want to go and say, Jane, why are you sitting like that? Can I find a way, I'm thinking, of using her? And I now have, because I've asked the question. Jane, do you mind just listening to these different words and see whether they sound the sort of words that would be right? I'll see if I can do that, but if she thinks it's a con trick. Okay, we're going to say, can you pick the sort of mildest word you've got down there? I'm trying to give the power away.
Yes.
Because I've taken it at that point. Do you see? I think for this air and wind pavilion, I think this notion of all these different words might lead us to extend the public's notion. Do you mind just being the public for a minute, Jane? I'll just try. I may not win, because I still don't know. And what I mustn't do is say, oh, she never joins in. She's like that. I wish to goodness she'd pull her socks up. I can't afford to do that, because I've got to keep on trying. And I can't say, have you tried getting Jane in? And so on. Now you try one. I've only just made a beginning, I realise.
So I need to have a look at this group and see the signs first, which suggests that the group's fairly active. There's, but that there are two. There's a split in this group as well. There are two doing one thing and another four doing something else. Perhaps even looking at what's going on there. So shall I see what we've got? This group is interested in how to show the power and ill effects of wind movement, e.g. damage to trees, pollution and acid rain. Looks like there's a variety of things going on there. I mean, there's a tree stump that and maybe this girl's trying to interest this other one in getting involved. Is
So
what I
these
see.
are the thoughts going on in your
Yes,
mind. Now put yourself in the group and try your first negotiation as a person running aerosol with them. Now time.
It's interesting. You've got some actual trees here, have you? You're trying to use real wood here.
Now I would say Ian is using the inspector's tone. You've got some actual trees here, have you? And that is a sort of, I can inspect what you're doing. Now don't inspect what they're doing. Hey, having real trees in, yes, that could be quite, yes. I'm just wondering where we're going to get these from. Does anybody know a forest? You see what I mean by the inspector's tone? Did you actually hear it once it was said?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear it once it was said? You see, in a way, have you is a patronising statement.
Yes.
Now, this basically then is one of your biggest sort of problems that might well make you feel daunted. Do you feel comfortable enough to keep? working at that?
Oh, I think it's a real challenge now to try to get the language that will involve them.
And generate more rigour.